All right, Sean Zittel of FightHype.com here with a mixed martial arts legend and also a guy who was a lot of our favorite wrestlers back in the day in the late '90s. But the man himself, Ken Shamrock. Ken, thank you so much for joining me. You're doing your promoter thing today, not talking as a fighter, talking as a promoter and a fighter as well, I'm sure. But Ken, Valor Bare Knuckles 2, October 27th at the UNF in Jacksonville, Florida. What can you tell me about this new business you're promoting?
Yeah, it's something that it goes back to when me being a fighter and having to step out. I was getting to a point where my body couldn't go through the training, couldn't really put in the time, and I never really wanted to leave. Even as long as I fought longer than anyone, in age wise, but I just because I loved it so much, I didn't want to leave it, and so I got to a point where I couldn't really do it inside there anymore. So I thought to myself, the only way I could stay involved was to really develop my own promotion, a vision, something that I could build and still be a part of. Watch others follow the dreams that I followed and the success that I had. Being able to watch them do that might give me that thing that I'm missing by being a fighter. So I went in and I basically told myself, if I do this, I'm not going to do it and just to do it to try to kill time. I wanted to do it and be good at it, just like I did as a fighter. I want to be great. So the only way I could do that was really pull from my experiences. How do I develop an organization that would be somewhat better than what we've seen in the past? How do you do that? And I thought to myself, well, let's go and let's take some of the experiences from the fan base, from the media, from the fighters, and try to put in some different twists and stuff that would help make this bare knuckle thing more exciting. And so I did that. I actually went. I remember thinking of some of the things that I had heard early on in my career where people were struggling with when they would get these seats on the floor. They'd be in the second, third, or fourth row on the floor, and they were constantly trying to look through ropes or cages, and it felt like they were always kind of separated from it. And they would pay this money to have these seats. And I thought to myself, as a fighter, why do we need cages or ropes? So whenever I fought, I never needed that. Like, I didn't need those to keep me in. It's like, why do we have those? In my mind, I'm like, okay, so why do we have them? Like, if we're not using them because we're afraid people are not going to fight or they're going to go outside, then why do we have them? And really the basically thing is it basically gives people an opportunity to cheat, to be able to bounce off them, to lay on them. And I say, okay, let's take that out. It'll be visually much better for the fan base, visually better for the media to be able to take the shots that they need to take from wherever they're at. And I thought to myself, for fighters, it would force them to have to use more footwork. And I was like, let's do that. Let's see what happens. So we took down the ropes and the cages. The next thing I thought about was like the beginning when they started putting gloves on guys and they started saying how they were going to make it safer. And I thought to myself when I first heard it, I was like, oh, yeah, pretty cool. But after I was there for 6 months to a year, I was thinking to myself, this isn't better. This is dangerous. Like, you're literally putting a 4-ounce glove on somebody that tapes their hands and be able to punch them in the head without hurting their hand and rewarding them for not hitting their target. And I was like, I want to take that out. I want it to be God-given talent. I don't want people to have something that's going to make them a better fighter by giving them an equipment. We'll take that off. No tape, no gloves, man. Pure God-given talent. So we did that. The other thing was the experience, not just with me as a fighter, but watching other people fight like Mike Tyson on the clinching. I just thought how boring it was when Mike Tyson had so much ability to be able to land those punches that people just started to figure out, just throw the 1-2 and then clinch them all fight long. And it just became boring. It killed boxing. So we decided, let's take that out. And so once we added kind of these different rule sets, kind of the vision of what we were trying to build with my team that actually really helped me build this vision, it was unbelievable the first fight. It was nothing like it. And people were just like, wow, this is really, when they say bare knuckle, they mean bare knuckle. It was really a great experience. And now we're here with the opportunity to do another one after COVID and all the other stuff that we had gone through. We're here for a second one. I'm excited for it. And the thing I love most about it is it's more about the actual fight than it is an individual. This is about the bare knuckle, the fighting bare knuckle, just like it was back in the early days when it was no holds barred. It wasn't about names or fighters. It was about the actual fight, the no holds barred, anything goes fight. That's what this bare knuckle is, man. There's guys going in there that are going to fight true bare knuckle. There's no clinching and there's no ropes and cages to roll around and stay on. And it is going to be a total nonstop action.
Now, Ken, I know this is something you probably heard a lot of back in the 90s when the UFC was getting off the ground. And that's it. What do you say to people who think this sport, bare knuckle boxing, is too brutal for their taste? I think I even saw a viral clip of a young lady. Maybe you saw it. She was messed up, and you know, it was more, her face was more messed up than you'd see it, you know, in a regular boxing match with the gloves and whatnot. So what do you say to people that have that concern? This is too brutal for me.
Well, and I've been through this. I was the face of UFC when it was happening, and people were saying we were barbaric and we were animals. They just didn't understand how much skill set it took to be a champion in that. It was a lot that went into it. And so it's the same thing we're at now with bare knuckle, where it's just people are not educated. They don't understand what's happening. All they see visually. Now, if you're a fighter or if you're a fan that likes fighting, this stuff is great, right? What you have to understand is first of all, your body, the way it's functioned. Your brain sits in fluid inside your head. There's a hard surface that goes around that. So unless you're using a baseball bat to break that skull, causing damage to the brain, then whatever you get hit with on the outside of that, if it's a fist, if it's a glove, it's a pillow, it really is irrelevant what happens to the skin on the outside. It's what happens to the brain on the inside. So if I hit you with a pillow 200 times in the head and I hit you with my fist 3 times, which one does more damage long term? And most people will go, oh my goodness, the guy would be knocked out, cut, broken jaw, broken. Yeah, all that heals. But if you took that brain and your thing bounced off inside of your head 100 times, 200 times, that means that brain has been bruised 200 times with a glove. And that's what bare knuckle and boxing is. It's about the evaluation of long-term damage. And if people, and that's the education that we'll start teaching. Visually, it is very brutal. It's vicious looking because there's cuts, there's blood, there's broken noses, there's broken hands. Yes, but all of that heals. That brain that is taking so much damage is not. It's continually getting worse. And that's why when I tell somebody to go talk to a boxer that's had a 20-year career, and most of them, not all of them, but the majority of them have a hard time speaking. And why is that? Because of the brain damage, because of the long-term brain damage.
Well, yeah, to be fair to you, Ken, if you're hitting with a bare knuckle and you try to hit a guy up top on the head, you're not going to be hitting him too long because your hand will break after a while, right? So
that is correct. You got to be more accurate with your punching. And again, like I said, it's basically starting with the no holds barred. It's educating the fan base as we go, because what they see is something that is odd to them, because most time when they see something like that, it's a street fight. Just like no holds barred days. They see guys going on the ground. They're like, oh, that's just barbaric, a bunch of thugs. Didn't understand it. Bare knuckle, true bare knuckle, they see that, and all they do is they see that with guys fighting on the street. So they correlate the two. They don't understand how good you have to be great at bare knuckle. You have to be very, very accurate in order to have a long career.
Well, and I think we touched on this last time too. It's just our internet connections were terrible. But you were also mentioning there's a different technique to bare knuckle boxing than the boxing, you know, the boxing I cover. And part of things like you can't catch, you know, in boxing, they do the catch and shoot. You know, you catch on the glove, boom, come back with a shot. Those kind of moves, you know, there's different set of moves you're going to have to figure out in bare knuckle. Is that right, Ken?
It is, because you don't have the surface on your hands like with gloves, or even the MMA gloves. They're a little bit bigger too. You have that big area to parry, to block. You have all those things that you can do because that surface is bigger. When you got bare knuckle, man, that hand is going to slide off and hit you in the face. You're not going to be able to block it. And we don't want open hands. We're trying to not let that happen. We want guys to have their fists closed at all times because when they go to throw a punch, somebody comes in and they happen to slip it and they go to throw. If they don't close their hand, they poke them in the eye. So if their hands are open and they do a quick shot and they don't close their hand, you get an eye poke. So by forcing this to happen, then we take that out, because you see in MMA, you see that happen all the time. And a lot of times it's done on purpose, because guys want to be able to poke somebody in the eye to view their vision, which I think sucks, but it happens. It's real. So we want to take that out, because there's no tape on the hand. There's no glove on the hand. We want them to continually, at every time when you're in that bout circle, you're in there fighting, your fists are closed. You don't have to squeeze them, but they're closed. So that takes away any mistakes that may happen with an eye gouge.
I believe you already had former world champion Ishe Smith a part of one of your shows. I know Austin Trout, another former world champion, has done this. How much do you want former fighters, to that were champions to compete in this, and how much do you want to build up talent from the ground up?
I've been a big fan of boxing. Sugar Ray Leonard, Duran, Hagler, Frazier, Ali, Holmes. I followed it, right? That was it then. And I feel like boxing's gotten soft. It is gone to the other side. Nobody fights each other. If they do, it's worked. To me, it just is not what it used to be. And I truly feel like what we're doing is going to bring boxing back, because there's a tremendous fan base out there. And I really want to be able to try to do that. I want to be able to come in, take the gloves off, take the tape off, and have guys go in there with the boxing rules, other than taking the clinching out. We don't want clinching. And go in there and actually fight. I think without a shadow of a doubt that boxing has a resurgence, because now it is just as exciting and just as competitive as MMA.
Did you see the fight over the weekend, Ken? The Canelo fight?
I didn't. No. It's not that I chose not to. It's just that I've got so locked into what I'm doing now with this. And then when I actually do try to watch one, I'm always disappointed.
Gotcha. I do got to ask a big thing going around mixed martial arts right now. There's a lot of talk of UFC's Fighter Pay, and you could see it from both sides now. You were a fighter, and now you are a promoter. What do you think of all this talk that these guys aren't getting paid enough?
Well, here's what I will say. I say, as a promoter or as a fighter, you got to protect your business. You can't let guys come in and run wild shot. But I will say this. I will say that, there's always room to try to negotiate what's best for you. The problem is, and I hear this all the time from the fan base, and it's kind of frustrating to me, is, well, you don't have to fight there. No, they do. There's nowhere else to go. It's called a monopoly. And it really forces guys to have to take what they give them. So don't go there when fan base. Be compassionate about these fighters, because this is their lifestyle. They can't go out and work at McDonald's or a gas station or a store. They're famous now, right? They made a name. And so this is all they're going to do, unless they build a business for them later, which is fine. But it's a tough business, because people look at it and they go, well, we got $2 million. $2 million ain't going to last you for 50 years. It's not going to happen. And so I hear both sides, and I think that there's some relevant to both sides. I just wish that in order to get this thing put underground, that they would go to the table, whatever it is that represents fighters and whatever it is that's representing the UFC or the combat space. Doesn't have to be UFC, but combat space. Come together and figure out something that's going to kind of make it fair, make it so that not one person has the complete control over what someone's going to get paid. To me, I think that's where the problem is. It's not individuals. It's not the organization. I think it's the system, and the system needs to kind of maybe balance itself out by putting some stipulations in there that protect both sides.
Ken, while I got you, I got to ask you, who was the tougher businessman, Dana White or Vince McMahon? And what did you learn from them now that you're kind of in their shoes?
Yeah, I think they both are very incredible at what they've been able to do. And what I've taken from both of them is persistence and making sure that that you when you go into a situation and that you have a certain place that you need to be, right? And that you figure out a way to get there. And it may not be a straight path. You may have to take all kinds of different turns in order to get where you need to go, but you get there. And so that's kind of what I've learned from both of them, is that they're just like they've done in their businesses. They've been stopped or they've had things happen, but you pivot and you make a move that will actually benefit you and bring you up to a higher place. So nothing's ever a bad thing. It's just an obstacle.
Who is the main event October 27th? Is that determined yet? And where can people buy the fight if they want to buy the fight?
Yeah, well, you can go to our app, valorbk.com, and you can find it there, or you can go to it live, which is what we're doing. We're doing more of a local show. Our main event is Mark Godbeer and LeVar Johnson. To me, I think it's gonna be a great fight. Look forward to that. We have a lot of undercard right now that we're actually finishing as we speak. So, the one thing I think that I love about where we're at right now, because I know you get into these other events, there's names and different things that people follow. But I remember back in the day when No Holds Barred first started, and people were watching it because it was No Holds Barred. It wasn't a name because there were none. It was about the actual event. I believe that's what Bare Knuckle is right now. It isn't about any individual fights, even though there's a lot of great ones out there. They just haven't made their name yet. And we've got some of them on our card. I think it's more about the actual true bare knuckle, no cage, no ropes, true bare knuckle, no clinching. What's going to happen? To me, I think that's the exciting part about this, because if you got two guys in there that want to fight one another, that are skilled at fighting, it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be fun to watch. And I think that's where we're at with bare knuckle, is it's not about an individual fighter. It's about the actual event.
Gotcha, Ken. And before I let you go, I had to ask you this last time as well. Fury and Ngannou will be fighting in a couple weeks. Who do you think wins that fight? And if they were fighting bare knuckles, and not with the rules they'll be fighting with October 28th, who do you think would win that fight under that set of rules?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you the name. What was it?
Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, who do you think wins their fight? And if they were fighting under your rules, the bare knuckle, who do you think would win that fight?
Yeah, I think if it was bare knuckle, it would be competitive. I really do. It's a different game. Although Tyson Fury is used to bare knuckle, I mean, he's been involved in that whole under stuff when he was a kid. So I don't think it would be scary to him, because that's what he was doing.
Well, his dad, I guess, was bare knuckle champ, with the
Right.
gypsies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just think that it evens it out, right? Because it's not boxing, right? Boxing's a whole different beast. So I just think Tyson Fury's got way too much of an advantage in the boxing rule set. But you take those gloves off, and now we have a fight.
Well, thank you, Ken. It was awesome to catch up with you, brother. Good luck to you in everything you're doing. If there's anything else you want to say to the fans, floor is yours. Thanks, man.
Yeah, October 27th, University of North Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, man. October 27th. Come check this out, man, because it is in the beginning stages of taking off, man. Be a part of it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.